2-0 dices va a ganar las Chivas. Uno cero. Muy bien, Mario. Bueno, pues ahí está el pronóstico.
Good morning, and thank you for tuning in to Tammy's Corner. It's a pleasure to have you with me today. And first and foremost, I'd like to give thanks to God for allowing me to be able to be here. We have an in studio guest. Her name is Dr. Lee, and I'm grateful that she decided to be with us here this morning. She'll be sharing the floor with me. And I also want to give thanks to a lot of people who have been a part of this momentous journey. A big shout out to Crystal Wells, who allowed me to be on her Wednesdays morning women's show. That was a springboard for Tammy's Corner. And please contact her at ladycjwells@gmail.com. That's ladycjwells@gmail.com or flowmilliondollar.com. flowmilliondollar.com. I also want to give praises to my mom, my sister Marisa, Jazz, David G, and Dai Dai. Thanks again to my sister who graced us with her presence with the official launch last week. And her restaurant is Island Breeze Jamaican Cuisine. It's the 9th year, her anniversary year, and that will be March 17th. So if anyone can go out there and please visit and patronize them when you can, especially for this anniversary. Let me give out the address. It's Island Breeze Jamaican Cuisine. It's 1063 South Mount Vernon Avenue, Colton, California, 92324. The number there is 909-514-0771. That's 909-514-0771. The email is ibjamaicancuisine.com. Give them a call and check them out. I'd like to go ahead and take a break really quickly from Tammy's Corner, and we'll get back with you. All right. We also will have later in the show, we have a young man that will be calling in and giving us some tidbits of financial literacy. And he's out in Atlanta, Georgia. And let me give you a little bit of background about him. This young man was born and raised in Savannah, Georgia. He's graduated from Georgia State University with a degree in marketing. He now resides in Atlanta as an upcoming record producer and financial services agent. His name is Will Bellinger, and I was really, really impressed by him. He actually did a post not too long ago, and I thought this was really, really great to share on the show this morning that maybe it can empower some other young men out there that are up-and-coming artists, or also you're going to school and you may think that that you're like in a strange place. This may be some encouraging words. He says whenever he visited his great aunt Inez, she used to always make him read a scripture before she let him play her piano. This happened for years without him realizing that she was just keeping him close to the one that gave him an ear for music. Oh, wow. He thanked her for that because till this day, he plays everything by ear. I want to give a shout out to all the wonderful great Aunt Inez's that are out there. She instilled, promoted, and fostered hope in this young man. And as I stated, he'll be coming up later in the show. And he's recording artist, producer. His music is on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/WillBell912, Instagram.com/ForeverWill912, and Twitter.com/EverWill912. This is also something that could promote some young upcoming artists. I'm really excited to hear what he has to say. And once again, we'll be right back with. We have a video right now that I'd like to just go on ahead and we'll go right into it. The video is about forgiveness. And I thought that this would, I'm just having like a tug in this area where I think a lot of us don't realize that either we need to be forgiven or we need to give forgiveness. And so in order for us to be free, this talks about love, truth, and freedom, the three graces. So just go ahead and check this out.
This is a love story, and it's a little non-traditional and very messy, quite circuitous, but ultimately beautiful and full of mystery. And I gotta tell you, I don't do too well with mystery. I don't like it. I'm an actress, and when you're in acting school, they'll say things to you like, okay, everybody, it is time to drop in. And I would always think, where? I don't see a hole. Or maybe you'll get a note like this, Kimberly, that was great, that monologue was great, but I need you to do it again. And this time, plug into something deeper. And I would think, if you point me to the nearest emotional wall outlet, I am there. I wasn't resistant, I just didn't understand. And I probably, like a lot of you in this room, crave understanding. I crave practical steps to everything in life, especially the bigger, fuller things. But there has been one area of my life that I could just not figure out for years. And this confusion led to a really dangerous limbo. But the last year and a half, along with a lot of help, I finally cracked it. We discovered the key to my future, and maybe the key to yours. So this is my story, and it goes a little something like this. When I was very young, I met a boy. Well, I say we met. It really felt like we'd always known each other. We come from really different backgrounds, but we always understood each other perfectly. We wanted the same things, we had identical interests, except ESPN. Plus, he was ever so dreamy, and generally amused with everything that I said and did. Sounds like a perfect match, right? But for some reason, I always kept one foot out of the door, and I didn't know why. After many graduations and jobs and breakups and reconciliations and frequent flyer miles, he finally ended up in a suit, on one knee, with a ring box. And it was so strange. I looked down at the love of my life, my best friend, my favorite person on the planet. And this is what came out of my mouth. I can't say yes to that question. Why? Why could I not say yes to that question? He didn't know, I didn't know, therapists didn't know, friends didn't know. If we were on Jeopardy, the answer would sound like this. What is unforgiveness? Turns out I had never forgiven him for anything he'd ever done. Not since we met, not since before we met, not since his skull had completely hardened. I thought I had. Whenever he did something wrong in the course of our relationship, he was pretty good about confessing and apologizing. And like any good child of this therapeutic age, I would listen and I would ask, why? Why did you do that? And I would probe his psyche, his triggers, his childhood, his motivations, and I would understand. And I would defend him, and I would excuse him, and I would justify him. But I wouldn't forgive him. I never really forgave him because real forgiveness is not justification. Real forgiveness requires an accusation. Otherwise, there's nothing to forgive. You have to name the offense and be willing to admit the hurt. I don't think we're comfortable with this. Not when it comes to forgiving people who matter to us, who are close to us, who can really affect our day-to-day lives. When we first met, he had a girlfriend he didn't tell me about, and he was seriously pursuing me. And when I found this out, it blew my sheltered mind. But I knew you're not supposed to be judgmental. Plus, cool girls don't get hurt, right? I think I felt safer if there was a good reason, a good psychological reason for his behavior. But that's not forgiveness. That's a feeble attempt at self-protection. And it's a little bit arrogant, setting oneself up as the bigger person. Plus, it turns the forgiven person into a victim of his psychological brokenness. Instead of seeing him for what he really is, a capable person who's in charge of his actions, who does wrong things sometimes. What if we were all brave enough and vulnerable enough to accuse each other flat out? To say, hey, that was selfish and that hurt me, instead of, that's okay, I know your dog died when you were 4. Maybe then we could untangle ourselves from our dysfunction and not be defined by it. Maybe then we could really forgive. Because real forgiveness is not based on an explanation. Real forgiveness can't be earned. It's unconditional. So, after he proposed, I broke up with him so that I could go figure out what the problem was. And I got mad. I mean, really mad. I mean, 40 pages of venomous journal writing kind of mad. Not about the breakup, but about everything that had happened before. Because if you haven't really forgiven, then all the wounds are still there, even if you think you've buried them, even if it happened years before. So here I was, not defending him, not justifying him, admitting the hurt and the pain. And now what was I supposed to do with all of this anger? Well, pop psychology tells me that I'm supposed to forgive so that I can let go and not be angry or bitter. But see, that feels like it's all about me. And the root word of forgive is give, which necessitates a recipient. If I give my mom a gift, I give it for her. I don't just wake up one morning and want to feel generous, so I go buy some random gift for some random person that I give on the street. No, I buy a gift for my mom because I love her. And that's the secret. Love and generosity. Love is the impetus to forgive. I don't just forgive because I don't want to feel bitter. That's a nice result, but I forgive because I want the forgiven to be freed from guilt, to be released from the shame. But where does all of this love and extravagant generosity come from? And how can I tap into it? Well, for me, humility was my access road there. It finally occurred to me that I am not Little Miss Perfect. That I have been forgiven for so many things in my life and need that forgiveness. If I step on someone's foot on the street because I'm more caught up in my own thoughts than I am the task at hand, namely to get where I'm going without injuring innocent bystanders, if I do that, I need a little bit of unconditional forgiveness from that stranger. If I'm 15 minutes late to lunch, I need a little bit more. But I have done so many worse things in my life. A lot of them I did to him. So when I finally forgave, I was really just paying it forward from a stockpile of love and generosity that I had been receiving my entire life. From him, from my parents, from society at large. If we didn't have this kind of everyday, free-flowing forgiveness, society as we know it would collapse. In his book, Free of Charge, Miroslav Volf describes this beautiful picture of the dance of the three graces from Greek mythology. They stand in a circle, And one's job is to give the gift, and one's job is to receive the gift, and then one's job is to return the gift. In this endless round of giving and receiving, they share, they all benefit, and there's no higher or lower status as giver or receiver. It flows. I think forgiveness is much less like a one-time action or event, and much more like a circle that we can choose to participate in, this circle of forgiveness. So I found myself in this hippie, free-flowing circle full of love and humility and generosity. I love that I'm actually standing in a circle right now. Thank you, TEDx CUNY. And in this circle, I found that there was no bitterness, and there was no anger. And there were other things there instead. There was joy, and there was truth. When my boyfriend and the thought of him and our relationship was suddenly not tethered to every tiny infraction he'd ever committed, I could see him for who he really was. The most gentle person that I have ever met, and I don't use the superlative lightly. And wise and kind and trustworthy, and yes, not perfect, but good. And I missed all that goodness. And plus, I wanted to share with him all of this newfound joy and lightness. I wanted to invite him to the dance. So I called him up and I said, "Remember that question that you asked me? I'm ready to answer it." I should pause my story here to say that it took me 16 months, very little contact with him, and a move across the country to finally step into the circle of forgiveness. And in that time, the love of my life had fallen in love with someone else. Someone who didn't make him subtly feel like the bad guy. It had taken me too long. It had taken me too long to forgive. And in the 20 plus hours of conversation we had about that matter, what became very obvious to me was that all the years of keeping him at arm's length had deeply wounded him. So now I began the long and much harder journey to forgiving myself. And I had to start with naming the offense. What exactly had I done wrong that made him hurt so much? It wasn't turning down his proposal, because if you can't say yes, you can't say yes. And it wasn't even justifying him instead of forgiving him, because you can only operate out of the knowledge that you have, and I just didn't get it back then. But I did act out of self-protection and fear and indecision. I did string him and myself along for a long time. And if I'm really, really honest with myself, I was more interested in what I could get from the relationship than what I could give to it. You have to name the offense specifically, because then you understand how much the forgiveness costs. Because even though forgiveness can't be earned, even though forgiveness is free for the receiver, it costs the giver. But whether you are the receiver or the giver, and in this situation like me, both the receiver and the giver, when you're in this accusation period, we have to be gracious and kind and step softly. I actually think this accusal period should be more like an autopsy and less like a rehearsal. When you autopsy something, you are looking for what went wrong, right? You either find it or you don't, and then you bury the body. It's essentially a fact-finding mission. Rehearsal, much different goal. We rehearse, yes, so that we can repeat the activity, but actors rehearse for a much deeper reason. We rehearse so that we can get those words and those actions into our bodies, so that we can create from that place, so that we can live out of that place, so that we can create out of that reality. If you go on a film set, you might see an actor walk onto the kitchen set for the first time, and maybe this is the kitchen that belongs to his character. Well, you'll see him do all kinds of crazy things, like open the refrigerator door 35 times. The reason why he's doing that is because he wants to believe that he's cooked there before. He wants to rehearse that so that he can create out of that reality, so that he can make you believe that reality. And it works. Rehearsal's really powerful. So we have to be super careful what we rehearse. So when I was in this name the offense stage, I tried to be really deliberate when I was journaling or praying or talking to my sister-in-law. I didn't want to rehearse the idea that I was this terrible, self-protective, selfish, fearful person. I wanted to just name the offense, forgive it in love, and then move on. This was not easy to do. But in a strange and dramatic turn of events, about 2 weeks after the last time we spoke, I got a very serious head injury. And I had to move home with my parents for 4.5 months to recover. And this ended up being sort of a gift, because I lay in that bed with a broken head and a broken heart, trying to start my life over. And the only thing I could do was ask for help. I just looked towards the heavens and asked for help. This from the girl who doesn't like mystery. And you know what? The help came. I would have these overwhelming moments, these feelings of well-being and hope. Now, I have to be honest, these moments were fleeting and far between, and sometimes they still are. So you know what? I would just ask again, and ask again, and ask again. There's this modern notion of forgiveness that it is a letting go. But there's one Hebrew word for forgiveness, nasa, which means exactly the opposite. The literal interpretation of nasa is to pick up and carry. And that is really my experience of forgiveness. It is something that I pick up and carry every day because of love. And I'll ask for help when I have trouble doing this. Sometimes I ask for help daily, sometimes hourly. I know this may sound like a really tiresome existence. And I'll admit, it takes a little bit of work. And it's certainly easier for me to get hurt now. Or at least it's easier for me to register the hurt. But there's some pretty great things about living this way too. And my favorite one is this. I feel like the Grinch when he stole Christmas and then gave it back again and his heart grew 3 sizes. See, this circle of forgiveness is where we aren't tied to the past, constantly having to rehash it. So we can live in the holy present with each other like the 3 graces. And we can have these whole big healthy hearts to continue writing our stories on. Forgiveness starts with truth. It's ushered in by love, and it leads to freedom. Now, at some point in this talk, some of you may have thought that my love story would have a traditional happy ending. And true, my ex-boyfriend and I don't have the most romantic story on earth, but I think we have a pretty remarkable love story, because that's exactly what forgiveness is. The greatest love story ever told. Thank you.
Good morning again. This is Tammy's Corner, and I'm your host, Tami. And thank you so much for watching this last clip. Actually, it was on forgiveness. And I don't know, maybe there's someone in your household, maybe there's someone at work, maybe there's someone at school, or maybe you haven't forgiven your past. But take this time to actually sit back and reflect on it. And just think about how your life can be free. So many doors can open for you if, in fact, you just look at some things and go, you know what, I've been carrying this weight, all these years. And maybe now it's time to let that go. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back with Will, who's offering financial literacy tidbits. It's just to whet our appetite and encourage familiarity with this topic, and he will be joining our show from time to time with awesome, informative nuggets. Also, his musical prowess. We'll be back in a second.
so many ways I can please. Hey,
What?
Good morning. Good morning. This is Tammy's Corner, and I have on the phone right now Will. Good morning, Will.
Good morning.
How are you?
Doing great. How about yourself?
How are you?
Good morning.
Hello. Hi. Good morning.
Good morning, Tami. How you doing this morning?
I'm good. How's the weather out there in Atlanta?
It's great. It feels like spring already.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, no. Thank you for coming on. I kind of gave the audience a bit of background on you. And what do you have this morning for us for financial literacy?
Well, I was really just going to break down some of the basics just to kind of set the foundation for what I would be talking about.
Great.
The main thing is really just understanding what financial literacy means on a general level. That way, we can kind of build from that.
Okay. So, what is financial literacy?
Well, it's a general term. I kind of break it up into 4 pieces, but the general understanding of what financial literacy is pretty much the understanding of how money works.
Okay.
Doesn't necessarily mean it's based on what you're spending or what you're bringing in, but it's really understanding how it works overall. So the 4 pieces I kind of break it into is really going to give you a lot more ways to understand how money flows and how it affects you directly.
Okay.
So number 1, I looked at how does a person make money.
Okay.
So that's the first piece to it. Number 2 is how do you manage it.
Okay.
So that's dealing with like your day-to-day livelihood.
Yes.
Your expenses that you pay monthly for, maybe it be your home or your vehicles, things like that.
Okay.
And then number 3, how you invest it. Pretty much how you make your money work for you or make you more money or build assets or acquire assets. And then number 4 is one thing that I think I actually come across a lot of people who does this a lot. So it's donating. How do you donate your money? Mm-hmm. Or give back?
Okay.
I think that's a big thing that you really should include with your financial literacy, because it makes a bigger impact for your community or your family or just your overall circle of people you're around. So those are the 4 pieces of how I break down on my understanding of financial literacy and how money works with regards to me and how it works around me.
Okay. So, I mean, what does, let's just say somebody's starting out brand new and
Mm-hmm.
has no idea of where do I go with financial literacy? I mean, who do I talk to? Is it my tax person? How do I even get started?
Well, I think you can talk to someone who's familiar with taxes and that part of it. Mm-hmm. But the good thing about it, you really can talk to a wide variety of people. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone who specializes in a particular sector of financing, whether it be a financial advisor or an investment banker or a tax representative. A lot of times you may find someone who have worked with that in the past, but they're currently in a whole nother area in their life now where they may be a teacher or something like that. But really, you can gain that understanding from anybody who's really abreast on how money works. I would advise personally to speak with a banker if you have one. Someone that's in the field of banking is a good resource, because they actually are trained on ways to help people build their credit or manage their accounts, invest their money. So they go through sufficient training to give people a greater understanding of how money works. So I think that would be a best resource that you can get from, anywhere. So you got plenty of banks around, you got plenty of bankers within those companies. So that I think you could start there.
Okay.
And then gain an understanding while you're, going through your day-to-day banking operation.
Okay. So, Will, what if I don't have a bank account? I mean, what?
Now, if you don't have a bank account, I'll tell you how I started to get into my own understanding of financial literacy.
Yes.
And I would just advise to just kind of take some time to look at your finances first.
Okay.
You really have to start to understand how your financial situation is. Basically, you're gonna have to sit down and make a honest effort. And I say honest because I've came across some situations where a person may feel like they won't necessarily need to know exactly how much money they're bringing in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's a want to not know, or if they just not understanding how to.
Hello?
He'll call back, I guess.
Okay. It appears that the call may have been dropped. We're going to wait for Will to call back. What we're going to do right now is just take a break, and then we'll come back with the show, Tammy's Corner. All right. Good morning, and thank you for tuning in with Tammy's Corner. We have Will back on the line. Thank you. He is calling in from Atlanta, Georgia, and I appreciate it. Will, I'm sorry you were cut off. Could you just go back over, reiterate that last statement? If in fact you have no bank account,
Right. So with no bank account, you want to first attack your understanding of your own finances. So just basically create an understanding of the money that you're bringing in, how much money you're bringing in, your expenses as well. So really gaining an understanding of your income expense ratio. And what I mean by that is how your income, how does it work with your expenses, or what is the difference between them? That'll give you a great understanding of, one, how much discretionary income that you have, or money that you really have left over to do, additional things outside of your needs. And then another thing, it really makes you understand what you don't need. And that way you can kind of figure out best ways to make your money work for you, how to cut back on certain things, and actually make yourself easier, have yourself with a more, I guess you could say, financially free, or a more flexible financial standing. But you have to really sit down first and understand how your income is positioned versus your expenses.
Thank you so much for that, Will, and I appreciate you calling in this morning. I do know that with financial literacy and your marketing background, that's not all that you do. You're also a recording artist, a producer. Do you want to just give some highlights of your new CD that you have out, or?
Sure. Yes. I just recently released my LP. It was a free project that I'm putting out for people just to spread a sample of what I could do. It's a hip hop album. It's called Mindsight of a King. You can find it on datpiff.com. Also, you can find it on audiomac.com. You can download it for free on your phone, your tablet, or your computer. Spread the word if you enjoy even just one song. I definitely think it'll be something that you can ride to. You can definitely take some things from it. A lot of my music deals with just overcoming a lot of obstacles, giving that motivational push for someone that may be going through the same things that I went through. And it really just gives you an eye-opener experience, a real-life insight of my day-to-day as an artist, as a man, growing to understand myself, growing to understand situations that I went through, and just making it a more personal experience. And a lot of my songs in the past were just general, but I made it more personal, so I feel like it can touch a lot of people in different ways and really, hit home for a lot of people. So, yeah, I definitely would like you guys to check that out if you get a chance.
All right. Thank you so much again, Will, for calling in. Will is a recording artist, producer, and sometimes we will have him call in from time to time regarding financial literacy and also his music. You can check him out on SoundCloud.com/WillBell912, Instagram.com/ForeverWill912, Twitter.com/EverWill912, YouTube.com/user/EverWill912. Peace and blessings to you, Will. Thank you so much for calling in. Okay, and also too this morning, I have an in-studio guest right now, which is Dr. Lee, and we're so lucky to have you in the studio this morning, Dr. Lee. I'm gonna have you go over a few questions. Go ahead and explain to the audience who you are.
Well, my name is Dr. Amira Lee. I am an elementary school principal. I work in Compton, USD. And more about myself, I'm a black woman,
Yes.
prideful black woman.
Yes.
Have two beautiful daughters.
Beautiful.
And I'll leave it at that. And I also want to thank you just real quick for inviting me and letting me be here.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Would you like to share on even the clip that I had earlier about forgiveness?
Well, interesting enough, it kind of resonated with me.
Okay.
In that there's something very huge in my life that needs to be forgiven or to give forgiveness.
Okay.
And you know how you reflect and you say, there's a reason I was called here today. And I think that was the reason. So,
Okay.
I would reflect on that. I would go back and watch that video and just kind of take it all in and see where it takes me. But I thought that was real interesting. I was like, wow, she's speaking to me.
Wow. Okay. All right. Can you basically give some advice to women to empower them at this point? Yeah.
Well, in regards to women empowerment, number one, you have to believe in yourself. That comes first.
Okay.
And you have to have faith in God so that he can get you there.
Yeah.
But we all have our struggles. We all have our tribulations. And we all have a mountain to climb.
Yes.
And that in order to do that, you have to, again, believe in yourself, and you have to be strong, and you have to put the past in the past and move forward. And so as women, we go through many things, job, work, men, children.
Yes.
We have many things that come our way, but again, we have to triumph over that, and we have to just continue to move forward and continue to make ourselves better.
Yes.
And education, number one key.
Yes.
Reading.
Yes.
Learning about yourself.
Yes.
Figuring out who you are in this world that we live in, and being focused on what your goals are. Make goals for yourself so that, number one, you can achieve those goals, but also just, again, I think the big thing for me, even at the age of 45, 46, is really
beautiful.
Reflecting on who you are and who you want to be as a person.
Yes.
And remembering to have high integrity with everything that you do.
Yes. Education. Can you give us some educational tips? What did you do to get to where you're at this particular? What path was that for you?
Well, never an easy path. Education is hard.
Yes.
Going to school is hard.
Yes. It's a sacrifice.
It is a sacrifice. And I'm an immigrant. I grew up. I was born in Panama.
Okay.
I came to the States.
All right.
School wasn't easy for me.
Okay.
Nor was it easy that I had parental support because my mom, again, was Panamanian. She probably went to school until she was 6th grade.
Okay.
So she couldn't really help me a lot with my homework and things like that. And she worked 2 jobs after my dad and her were divorced.
Okay.
So I was a latchkey kid, came home, was home by myself, kind of took care of myself and my brother.
Okay.
And that's a reality for a lot of our kids today. And,
reality for me as well.
Right.
My mom is Jamaican. Yes.
Okay.
And so basically I sympathize and I relate because I was also a latchkey kid. Yeah, coming home, and so there were a lot of things, especially educational wise. I couldn't go home and say, "Hey, how do you do this?" Because culturally, it just, you couldn't go into that.
Right,
Yeah.
and so with that, you have to have that intrinsic motivation.
Yes.
And I don't know where that comes from. It comes from somewhere,
Yes.
and maybe your parents instill it in you, because I see so many kids that don't have the intrinsic motivation, and you're like, how can I motivate these kids? But then there are other kids who are very intrinsically motivated and can do it on their own.
Right.
But yes, I had that intrinsic motivation. So it's funny when I talk to friends from high school, they were a lot, "Oh, Amira, you wanted to do this. You said you were going to do this. You were going to do this." And then when they talk to me now, they're like, "Oh, you are doing that." So it's nice to know that even back then at a young age, I had aspirations and I had goals, and I did them. And again, I think a big part of that is education.
Yes.
And again, believing in yourself and knowing that you can. And so, yes, I went to college, university, my first 4 years. And, something about me is I love to learn.
Yes.
And I think when you start learning, you're just like, oh, wow, this is so cool, and you feel so smart. And so, not that you're dumb, but you feel so smart.
Yeah.
So, I got my bachelor's degree. I felt good about myself. I struggled. I had my daughter right when I was graduating. So there was a point where I thought, oh, I'm not going to graduate. But I did.
Awesome.
And then,
Awesome.
we moved out here to California, was married, tried to get a teaching job, and I couldn't.
Okay.
So I had to go back to school because I didn't have the courses that I needed to get a California teaching credential.
Okay.
So I went back to school to get my master's. And then at that point, I had 2 little girls. And again, it was tough, and I was married. Going to school is very stressful.
Yes, it
and
is.
having a full-time job in the day, being a teacher. So
And being a mom.
Oh, yeah, and definitely. And then being
Yeah.
a mom, that was totally another job.
Can you stay right there for a minute? And because I'm a mom.
Right.
I did the same thing as far as in getting my undergrad with 3 girls. Oh, wow. Single mom.
Wow.
Yeah. And working 12-hour shifts at Cedar Sinai.
Oh, my
Stay
goodness.
right there with moms and being pregnant, and you overcame it. Talk about that right there.
Well, being mom and being pregnant and in school at the same time, it was a whirlwind because, number one, I was young. Had a lot going on, trying to graduate from school.
Yes.
Didn't want to fail.
Yeah.
That wasn't an option.
Right.
And so at that point in my life, I was just like, okay, this can't happen. I have these goals, and this is what I want to do for myself, and I know that I need this. At the same time, I wanted to be an example to the baby that I was having.
Oh, wow.
Right? I wanted to set her up for her success
Yeah.
in the future, just like you probably did, just the same. And so failing school, wasn't an option. So, I had to just try even harder, and I had to make sure I got there. And
you remind me of like David in the Bible when he said he encouraged himself in the Lord. It's like, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. What empowered you? What was that driving force?
I don't know specifically. If I were to go back, I would say, my mom was always very supportive.
Oh.
She didn't have the educational background, but yet she was always very supportive. Even if I didn't complete it, it wouldn't have been a big deal to her. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But the fact that I did was a big deal to her.
Yes.
And it's funny because I've even shared with my girls, because I do have a doctorate, and I got it from USC, and that was
Beautiful.
a program that was just unbelievable. But even now when I talk to my mom and she says, well, you've had so much schooling, she still doesn't really understand the extent of it all. Like she doesn't, you know what I mean? She can't relate.
Right.
She doesn't really understand. But again, there's always been something in me where I just felt like school, number one, was very important. But there's another part of me where I always felt like I had to make my mom proud. I always had to make my dad proud.
Okay.
And school was a way to do that because not because I was so successful at it, but because it was there, it was free, it was accessible, you know. And so it's funny because I was thinking about my dad the other day and him, he's passed away.
Okay.
But again, I was thinking about him in terms of, I wish he could see me now. My two beautiful girls, they both graduated from school and they've done that too because of the example that I've set for them.
Yes.
And then just knowing, again, you're going to go through many things in life, but you have to pick yourself up and you have to keep going.
Continue.
Yeah.
You must continue.
Yeah.
Wow. Those are strengths and challenges that you've overcome. Let's talk about even the kids that you are around and you supervise them daily. How do you help them overcome their challenges?
That's a tough one because, we all have different personalities and we all bring something different to the table. Again, some kids are intrinsically motivated, some are not. Some have emotional issues.
Yes.
Some do not.
Yes.
They come in different color, different sizes, all of that.
Yes.
And so kind of just meeting them where they are.
I love it.
Because that's so important.
Yes.
I talk to my teachers all the time about, we have to move kids. Our job is to move kids from point A to point B. If they're with us from, kindergarten all the way up to 6th grade, then that might be point A to point B, from B to C, and then going on, up the line in the alphabet. But our job is to move them from one point to another. And that may be academically, that may be behaviorally, socially. We have to develop the child emotionally, socially, and physically, and their academics. So there's a lot for us to do, and to do that in combination with their parents, because their parents are their first teacher.
Right.
And so we have to motivate them. Sometimes we forget. And we may not necessarily treat kids the way that they deserve to be treated. And so we have to remember that they're people too.
Right.
And so again, motivating them and inspiring them and telling them our life story.
Yeah.
That's the other big part of it, is letting them know that we have a story too.
Right.
And that makes me who I am, and that makes me do what I do for you.
Yes.
And I shared with my students that, the big wave right now in innovation and in schools and in education is technology. Of course, we're sitting in a radio station.
Right.
Technology, web, iPads, Instagram, all those different things. And so originally when I went to school, I didn't want to be a teacher. I wanted to be an optometrist. And being an optometrist, of course, requires a lot of science classes.
Yes.
I hated science. I think my teachers hated science because they didn't teach me science. So therefore, when I went to school to be an optometrist, I didn't have the science background that I needed. And so, again, failure was not an option for me. So as I started taking the different classes, and they were all science-based, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. And so quickly I changed and quote unquote wanted to be a teacher. That was my second passion. And so I moved forward with that. But going back to students and what we instill in them, even though we may not have the quote unquote background to be a science teacher, right? We need to do that because, the world is changing and it's requiring more of students and it's requiring more of teachers as well.
Right.
And so we can't let our own biases interfere with setting these kids up for success.
Yes.
And so when I look back at myself, again, I could be an optometrist right now, but I'm not. But I love what I do, so that's a blessing too in disguise, right? However, again, we have to instill in these kids that they can do whatever they want to do.
Yes.
And they have to believe in themselves.
Yes.
And we are here, we're a platform for them.
Yes.
We set the foundation for them.
Yes.
We move them along that continuum, and they're with us again only for a short time in elementary.
Right.
And again, we move them from point A to point B, and then again to point C, and we keep moving them forward so that eventually they can be successful and they can achieve their goals. And then letting them know that they can have aspirations and they can have goals for themselves as well.
And actually complete them.
And complete them. Amen to that.
Accountability and responsibility. What does that mean to you?
Wow. Accountability and responsibility. Well, I'm hugely accountable to myself. I think that comes first, without no doubt, and to God, right? And so I work hard. I have, strong work ethic. I'm sure you can tell. But that is first and foremost. I have to be accountable to myself. My daughters will tell you I leave at 7 o'clock in the morning. I come home at 8 o'clock at night. Sometimes I wonder, what am I doing there so late? And what am I truly accomplishing? Because I come back the next day and the work is still there. But again, I have my own work ethic. And even though someone doesn't say to me, oh, you need to do X, Y, and Z, I have my own vision. I have my own plan. And these are the things that I want to accomplish for myself.
Yes.
And so therefore, I stay late, I work hard, and I get them done. So then again, going back to your question, accountability and responsibility is first to myself.
Yeah.
My second accountability and responsibility is also to my girls, because I want to set an example for them. Going to work every day, being a hard worker, having work ethic, showing up, being reliable, being responsible, completing a job, doing all the things that you're supposed to do. Commitment. Exactly.
Love it.
That's very important. And then, of course, I'm accountable and responsible to the kids that I service. I represent them.
Yes.
And their parents as well.
Yes.
And as you know, because your mother was, you're from Jamaica and I'm from Panama, it's the same thing. The kids that I service, their parents may not have the education.
Right.
They may not have the wealth.
Right.
They may not have the background.
Right.
But it is our job, because they've entrusted them to us, that we again set them up for some success. And so I'm accountable to the students as well as the parents.
Yes.
Because I want them to be successful. I want them to have a better life. And, as you and I know, we give back, just like your friend on the phone was talking about. We give back. Now, we give back maybe to our community by community service. We might give back by donating. And then most importantly, I think I give back to my mom. Like, I want to be there for her when there's a time when she can't do for herself.
Yes.
And again, that's why she brought me up the way she did, so that someday I will take care of her. She took care of me,
Love
and
it.
so that's, that's very important.
The circle completes itself.
It sure does.
I love it.
Yeah.
I thank you so much for coming in the studio. Last minute notice, you were here, and that's why I asked you about accountability and responsibility, because I personally now know that is something that you live by.
Right.
I'm grateful for you as a sister in Christ, and also as a sister. Like, I can say now that you're like in the family.
Right.
I want you to have an open door to come in and just share, because we need this. I'm literally here basically just to empower us as people.
Right.
And if we can see more of us in a positive stance, there's so much negativity out there. But if we
Agree.
can see us as in a positive stance, I think this is a platform for it. So thank you for joining us on Tami's Corner. Thank you for coming in this week. Stay tuned. Same time, same channel next week, the same show. All right. Thank you.